Please note that for this video, I've decided that I'm going to do less of my heavy editing like I did in my prior Madoka Magica video. And the reason for that is, well, one, it would take me forever to get the video out, and I really don't want this one to be on the back burner for too long. And the other reason for that is because we're in the middle of a heat wave here, still in the middle of one as I'm recording this little bit. And to be honest with you, I got really exhausted while working on the video as a result of it. So I would rather just get the video out than have it sitting here while I wait for the heat wave to pass and I get my motivation back or whatever. So yeah, this video is going to be more so one that you just are able to put on in the background without needing to worry if you miss something. I've done it. And what exactly is it, you might ask? Well, I've cracked the code and solved the unsolvable. Well, alright, perhaps I'm giving myself a little too much credit there, but when you've scoured these notes and pages upon pages of information and lore as extensively as I have, you just can't help but feel a little cocky when something new clicks. And this didn't just click. Oh no. No, this fit perfectly into place. It was as if I'd been putting together a giant puzzle for years, but the last piece was always away from wherever I was looking, always out of reach. Until now. Yes, that little pesky piece of the puzzle that somehow stayed hidden finally showed itself to me today. And with it, I can finally put to bed the one thing that has been troubling me for years. Walpurgisnacht is an entity that needs no introduction, as she does that herself. She's the ultimate witch, the bringer of calamity, the fool who turns throughout the world. Her name is being used for the upcoming fourth and possibly final Madoka Magica film, and yet we still do not know why. Well, I think I do. And honestly, I'd hazard a guess to say that some of you do as well. If anything, it starts to become obvious, laughably obvious, why she's going to be here, and make no mistake, she will be in this movie. Of that, I am certain. No, see, the lack of seeing her in the trailers for this movie only strengthens that because it suggests something very peculiar. And I want to take a look at what we don't see, because to find Walpurgisnacht in this movie, we're going to need to find the unfindable. So why am I making this video? Well, despite my past confidence, I need to admit that I believe I was wrong. Why was I wrong about who Walpurgisnacht was? Well, we will get to that, but you might remember that the last time I made a Madoka Magica video, I was very confident, too confident maybe, that I knew who she was. Yes, I've been confident in her identity for a long time, but even as I spouted my theory that it had to be who I thought it was, something didn't sit right. You'll recall that my belief has been that it must be Homura who becomes Walpurgisnacht. I have stated my reasons for believing this, but it ultimately comes down to the fact that in Walpurgisnacht Rising, we see a version of Homura who bears a striking similarity to the Ultimate Witch. Homura in general shares many, many similarities with Walpurgisnacht. Association with time, looping, cycles, all of this fits Homura to a T. Even small things, like Walpurgisnacht's helpless nature, is mirrored by Homura's original feeling of helplessness. In that same video, though, I also stated that there are parts of Walpurgisnacht's character that align slightly better with Madoka Kaname herself. Madoka is placed constantly into positions where she is ultimately helpless, unable to stop the inevitable outcomes from happening, and so continues onwards. Her naivete is seen as foolish to a hardened person like Homura, and even Madoka herself doubts who she is. She is tied to so many people that it also justifies linking her to the idea of Walpurgisnacht as an amalgamate of various witches. I even got desperate at one point, happy to settle for the easiest possible answer. If Walpurgisnacht shared so many traits with both of them, but neither of them fit her 100%, then she must be a combination of both. This matters to absolutely nobody but me, but I am a perfectionist. So, to be honest with you, even as I spoke these words into the world, even as I gave it my stamp of confident theory crafting, I did not fully believe it. Those theories were always only placeholders, temporary things to say while the absence of truth gnawed away at my mind. I simply didn't have an answer. When it comes to the Madoka Magica community, I do not really engage with it. I will not sugarcoat that, because I find it better for me to work alone, able to focus solely on things that I have picked up or figured out. It's why I am able to be so confident in my delivery of theories such as the ones I presented last time, because I know all of the information I have sourced is by my own hands. Of course, I've known about offhand theories about Walpurgisnacht for a while. I remember the briefly lived days where we thought Nagisa or Hitomi might be Walpurgisnacht. I was there when Magia Record first dropped, and we got our first look at Iroha Tamaki, and how it made us question how big of an expansion the series was about to get. Maybe one of the girls in here could be Walpurgisnacht. I was there in the trenches the day the concept movie dropped. I have been a part of this community through highs and lows, but my own solitary nature has made me not wish to engage with others. It is because of this that I think I grew comfortable with a theory I didn't fully subscribe to. I got complacent and settled for something less than what I considered to be the best possible theory I could provide. I was in a rush to get that video out because I wanted to have something at the release of the trailer. But the theory suffered because of it, and now it's time to change it. We need to take another look at Walpurgisnacht, but this time we're going to go in and break apart every single minute detail. Everything is up for scrutiny, because by the end of this video, I want to present an answer that is as close to foolproof as possible. So let's begin. The first thing that most people will learn about Walpurgisnacht is that she is truly unlike any witch that preceded her in the series. Most witches are defined by a single trait that can draw them back to the magical girl that gave birth to them. And further still, these witches are usually easily dealt with, a one and done fight unless she manages to escape. Walpurgisnacht, however, flips this on its head. She defies all logic established by witches prior. She does have a trait, yes, but that barely does much in the way of identifying her. Not only that, but she seems nigh invincible. She is treated as this inevitable thing that must arrive. The other most important thing that we learn explicitly in canon is that Walpurgisnacht is not tied to this era where the Holy Quintet are. She is a witch known to appear throughout countless eras in time. Specifically, she is passed down through the spreading of her mysteries. She has existed throughout all of time and is known by many because the memory of her has been handed down. It is this point of her transcending time that immediately makes one consider Homura, this and her nature of helplessness. I will not rehash the theory, but we must talk about the argument against this simply being Homura. While Akuma Homura does remake the universe to her liking at the end of the Rebellion story, and this obviously gives her one example of transcending time to such a degree seen with Walpurgisnacht, it does not account for the fact that Homura's own time-traveling capabilities are seemingly limited to the month wherein she first met Madoka. Sure, technically it's not been confirmed to be impossible for her to rewind further, but since we haven't seen it, it is a flimsy point at best. We can't simply settle for the idea that Homura transcends time the same way as the Ultimate Witch. If we're going to say that Homura is Walpurgisnacht, we need explicit proof. Right now, canon only provides evidence against this, showing her only being able to reset the single month over and over, while Walpurgisnacht has existed for many, many years. Again, while it is certainly not impossible, I'm not going to count that as evidence. Walpurgisnacht's existing time motifs being considered references to Homura does make sense. Even I used it as an argument. But let us also consider that this is just because she herself already transcends time. We already have explicit wording of her timeless existence, that she appears in all eras throughout time. She already has a strong link to the concept of time that it's enough to justify the design choices such as a half hourglass figure and gears as seen in a clock. When you look beyond things stated explicitly in the show and start looking at notes about character designs and all of that, one of the things you will learn about Walpurgisnacht is that she has no known name. Yes, Walpurgisnacht is not the witch's name, not her true name anyway. It is directly stated that the witch's mysteries have been handed down through the course of history. Its appellation is Walpurgisnacht. An appellation, in simple terms, is a name, title, or designation given to something, typically by the agreement of many to do so. Specifically, an appellation can refer to the title given to the designation of a person, such as a lord, prince, or a king, the designation of a unique object, such as Mount Everest, or the designation of a unique concept, such as the Nobel Prize. I believe with utmost certainty that Walpurgisnacht was never meant to be a name. It is a title given to the concept that this witch represents. We know the story of Walpurgisnacht is one handed down throughout all eras of time, and such a tale, a concept, needs a title or an appellation. If Walpurgisnacht had a name, history would have, should have recorded it. This also lines up with the fact that we in the real world gave the appellation of Walpurgisnacht, Walpurgisnacht, to a day of celebration. None of this is new information. I'm simply presenting it all together this way because it all funnels into a single question. If its title is Walpurgisnacht, but we don't know its name, did the witch ever have a name to begin with? Let's put a pin in this, because we're going to come back to this point later. One very unique thing about Walpurgisnacht is that canonically, nobody seems to know if she is a singular entity or if she is the amalgamation of many. Of course, we can specifically look at imagery to suggest that she is a collective system, as well as how her description seems to hint at a sort of collector role that she has. This part is why some believe that Walpurgisnacht could be the combined form of each member of the Holy Quintet. This is a good line of thinking to follow, genuinely, because it also served as the logic behind my theory that Walpurgisnacht is specifically Homera and Madoka. Of course, now with all of the other points I've made certain to bring up, I think these interpretations sadly fail to hold up to the level of scrutiny that I'm hoping to push. The Holy Quintet would need to all transcend time. Or, and this is a point that is actually pretty hard for me to disprove right now, it refers to Madoka and her ties to Homera's resets. Madoka and Homera combined ended up being the most plausible idea for me. For this specific reason, it is still true that they both hold connections to this ultimate witch, and they both fill in the blanks left by the other. And yet, neither of them fit it flawlessly. There is instead a simple answer that I think is what we've been looking for. If her name was passed down through history, and she is a collective system of many witches, then Walpurgisnacht is the cumulative grief amassed by magical girls who fell to despair throughout all of time. And there we have it. The answer to the biggest mystery in the franchise. Done and dusted. Go home. We packed it up, and we've solved it. But wait. Why is she back in Walpurgisnacht Rising? Why is the next film named after her? She was defeated, right? We already saw the grief of all magical girls erased. So why are we coming back to her? Yeah, come on. You didn't think we were going to be done that quickly, did you? You can see how long the video has left. Our foolproof answer is not yet here. We need to keep going. The subtitle of the next film is Walpurgisnacht Rising, which is interesting to say the least. This is taken from the Japanese title, which translates as Walpurgis no Kaiten. Let's take a look specifically at that last word, Kaiten. Kaiten is a fairly straightforward word to understand. It is a noun that translates to a variety of words related to a cyclical movement, including rotation, revolution, turning, or spinning. In reference to Walpurgisnacht, this makes sense. She is known as the fool who turns through the world, and her body is made up of large rotating gears. This link of rotation and cycles is one of the points I used when attempting to link her to Madoka. But I'm sure you are wondering why I'm bringing this up now. Well, there is one word in there that stood out to me as striking when it came to the translations of Kaiten. Puella Magi, Madoka Magica, Beginnings. Eternal Rebellion. What do these titles have in common? Barring the very specific and literal translation of the third film, each Madoka Magica film has a subtitle that is a single word name, Beginnings, Eternal, and Rebellion. Would it not have just made sense for the fourth film to be called Puella Magi, Madoka Magica, Revolution? This was already a decently accepted name within the community for some of us, myself included, and I have to wonder why they didn't use Revolution as the subtitle, especially when Kaiten directly translates into that word. Yes, I know this is such a small thing to nitpick, but it's not even that it's just named Rising instead. It is Walpurgisnacht Rising. Again, why are we going back to Walpurgisnacht to see her rise? How are we going back? By all accounts, Walpurgisnacht really should not exist in this world. Paradoxically, I think this suggests that we are looking at Walpurgisnacht's point of origin. We're not looking into the past. No, we are very much in the present time. If rising speaks to the idea of something new, and that new is Walpurgisnacht, then it means the ultimate witch's origins are in of itself a paradox. There is still one other thing about this word that I need to clear up. A mistake I made in my prior video that bugs me. In my last video, I stated that the word kaiten can be translated to mean heaven and use this to link it to Madoka. While I am still correct about its link to that word, I did not properly explain how it translates to heaven, and the truth behind that is a little more interesting than I realized. Kaiten itself does not translate to the word heaven, but rather a part of it does. If you'll notice, there are two symbols in the word. The first of these, kai, is the part of the word which translates to words like round, revolve, and turn. Ten is the part of the word which translates to something completely different. It can translate to words such as sky, imperial, or heaven. Gaiten, interestingly enough, was also the name of the manned submarines used by the Japanese Imperial Navy in World War II's final stages. They were used as suicide crafts and went through 10 iterations before the end of the war. The name of the weapon translates literally to mean turning the heavens, or commonly translated as turning heaven's will, as in to flip the current outcome of things, shake up the status quo, turn the tides in your favor. Let us go back and point out the most important details that we've gathered about Walpurgisnacht. She is a being which transcends time. She is a being whose name was unknown by the people who gave her the title she carries throughout history. She has appeared before every magical girl throughout many eras. She is a collective system of the grief of many. She is considered foolish, and she moves in a cyclical nature until the entire world is caught up in her design. Wait, I've heard this somewhere before, and so have you. I'm sure you can see it. The answer has been staring us in the face the whole damn time. What if, viewer, I didn't tell you any of this is about Walpurgisnacht? What if instead I just gave you the list of details and asked you to give me a Madoka Magica character that you think the list applies to? Who do you think you might say? Magi, Madoka Magica originally ends with the final showdown between Homura Akemi, Madoka Kaname, the Incubator, and Walpurgisnacht. Throughout the series, we have built up to this singular moment when it finally comes to pay off the mystery about what Madoka's wish is going to be. In the climactic moment when she finally decides to contract Kyubey, Madoka ushers her wish into the world, trading her soul to, quote, erase witches before they're born. Every single witch, from the past, present, and future, everywhere. I don't care what I become. All the magical girls who believed in hope and fought witches, I don't want them to suffer or cry anymore. I want them to be at peace, and if that goes against the laws of the universe, then I'll just rewrite those laws. Madoka has her reality-defying wish granted. She becomes a magical girl capable of reshaping the entire universe. She is not just a magical girl, she has become a god. Known canonically as Ultimate Madoka, her role in this form is to appear before a magical girl who is about to fall to despair and take on that despair herself. She was able to attain so much power thanks to her karmic destiny that even her own witch form, Kriemhild Gretchen, was able to be purified. By erasing her own despair from the universe, Madoka also erased her proof of human existence and became known as a concept called the Law of Cycles, an entity that upholds the task of erasing the despair of magical girls by taking it upon herself. As a result, Madoka's name is no longer known by anyone in the world except for Homura Akemi. The Law of Cycles is then worshipped as a goddess in the new world that she made, known by every single magical girl across time, but only by that title of the Law of Cycles and not her original name, as it is a name lost to time. Let's go back one more time and take a look at those points I made about Walpurgisnacht. She is a being which transcends time. Both the Law of Cycles and Walpurgisnacht are known throughout all of time, thanks to a legend made in their name. She is a being whose name was unknown by the people who gave her the title that she carries throughout history. The Law of Cycles and Walpurgisnacht are both known solely by a title, as their true name is lost from the minds of the people who passed down their stories. She has appeared before magical girls throughout many eras. The Law of Cycles is the salvation of all magical girls about to fall to despair, and Walpurgisnacht is considered the greatest enemy of all magical girls. She is the collective system of the grief of many. The Law of Cycles does not erase the grief of magical girls she appears before, but absorbs it and takes on its burden herself. Walpurgisnacht is believed to be an amalgamation of many witches throughout all of time, thus an amalgamation of grief. Is considered foolish. By Homura specifically, Madoka is considered to be a fool for wanting to accept the burden of becoming a concept and giving up her humanity, while Walpurgisnacht is defined by her description of being the fool who turns throughout the world. She moves in a cyclical nature until the world is caught up in her design. It is the Law of Cycles' role to bring all despairing magical girls into her heaven, while Walpurgisnacht's purpose is to turn the world upside down and bring everything in the era it visits into its dramatic stage play. So what is the point? Why am I saying this? Why point out that Madoka and Walpurgisnacht have so many specific similarities? Does this not go against the original purpose of this video? Distancing myself from the theories that I felt were not good enough? Well, the answer is simple, really. I'm not talking about Madoka. The Law of Cycles and Madoka Kaname are not considered to be the same entity. Ultimate Madoka could be a manifestation of the Law of Cycles, but this does not mean that Madoka herself is the Law of Cycles. Rebellion only further strengthened this point. That movie ends with Homura forcibly splitting Madoka and the Law of Cycles apart. Madoka Kaname, the girl, and the goddess, the Law of Cycles, are indisputably confirmed to be separate beings. They exist independently of each other. I am not saying Madoka is Walpurgisnacht. I am saying that the Law of Cycles is. The burden of proof now lies with me. I've made a bold claim, and while I have evidence there to help it, mere similarities between the two likely won't suffice as evidence. It'd only be as good as my last theories. No, we need explicit proof of something damning, something within the show itself. So let's take a look at the system upheld by the Law of Cycles. The Law of Cycles appears before a magical girl about to fall to despair and absorbs the grief accumulated within her soul gem. She doesn't erase it, she simply moves it and stores it within herself. If you're wondering why I'm bringing this up so specifically, let me compare this to something else seen in the series. A grief seed's purpose is to be used to absorb the grief and despair accumulated within the soul gem of a magical girl, storing all of that grief within itself. Yes, you're hearing my implication correct. The Law of Cycles is essentially acting like a cosmic scaled grief seed or soul gem, a vessel for grief and despair, removing it from magical girls that it comes into contact with. Do you guys recall the other function of a grief seed? Seeds need to sprout eventually, and grief seeds sprout violently, releasing all of the contained despair and birthing a new witch. So what then happens if our cosmic soul gem becomes a grief seed and hatches? The despair of all magical girls throughout history suddenly erupts into a single combined entity. Why, of course, the only thing it can be is Walpurgisnacht. But at least Madoka's actions have now erased Walpurgisnacht. It's not like anything happened to change that outcome. It's not as if someone could have weakened the goddess. When a magical girl falls to despair, her soul gem overflows with grief. It cracks and shatters, breaking a seal that then births the witch trapped inside. When it cracks, it erupts into a stream of multicolored particles that eventually give shape to the witch. When Homura took a hold of the Law of Cycles and pulled on her, trying to remove Madoka, streams of particles spewed out around them, multicolored with a black background. And when she finally ripped Madoka out of the goddess, the screen split, cracking like glass. I have no doubts left now. This theory not only accounts for the issues that I had with my prior guesses, but even addresses potential concerns that I had with the upcoming film, notably how it could possibly give us a good story about Walpurgisnacht while also tying up the loose ends about the Law of Cycles. For years, this answer has been staring me in the face, and I never realized it. I've tied too many strings to pointless ideas that I missed the most obvious one of all. Walpurgisnacht is the witch form of the Law of Cycles. The reason this film is called Walpurgisnacht Rising is because this moment is where Walpurgisnacht's story begins. Its hatching will likely reset everything back to zero, and so the cycle continues. Let us summarize the events and piece this together one last time. Homura Akemi meets a magical girl named Madoka Kaname, becoming her close friend after a series of events pushes them together. At the end of everything, Madoka sacrifices herself to defeat a powerful witch named Walpurgisnacht, losing her life in the process. Homura, unable to cope with this, makes a contract with Kyubey and resets her meeting with Madoka in an attempt to spare her from this outcome. She keeps doing this, over and over for what ends up being years on end, repeating the same month continuously in an effort to find a way to defeat Walpurgisnacht without Madoka being the one to fall to it. Throughout these loops, Homura learns the truth behind the magical goal system and how the goals are essentially a power source for the universe to ensure that entropy is maintained as a constant force. And at the request of a dying Madoka, Homura takes it upon herself to make sure Madoka never becomes a magical girl. By her final reset, Homura is close to her wit's end, but she is sure there must be a way forward, and so she keeps going. But this time, something changes. Madoka makes a wish so powerful that it rewrites everything. Her wish completely overhauls the system of the universe itself and makes it so witches never have the chance to be born in the first place, including Walpurgisnacht and including even her own witch. Madoka Kaname loses her proof of human existence and becomes a concept known as the Law of Cycles, able to keep the system set in place by Madoka to absorb the despair of all magical girls before they become witches, but at the cost of everybody forgetting who she is, everyone except for Homura. Homura fell to despair in the new world created by the Law of Cycles as her soul gem could not be reached in time, and she created a massive labyrinth around herself that was monitored by the incubators. Madoka, as the Law of Cycles, sent Nagisa Momoe and Sayaka Miki into the labyrinth to get Homura ready for her arrival. The team beats Homura's witch, and the Law of Cycles arrives, ready to bring her into heaven. Until Homura takes a hold of the image of divinity and pulls until she finally tears Madoka Kaname out of the goddess, absorbing her powers and reshaping reality to make a new world ideally suited to Madoka, who would never have made a contract with Kyubey in this world. But by breaking apart the Law of Cycles, Homura made the goddess too weak to contain all of the grief and despair accumulated inside of her for countless eras, not realizing that the Law of Cycles is basically a larger scaled soul gem. She broke it and is now forced to watch as the witch is born from the despair inside of it, and that witch will be Walpurgisnacht. There's a chance I am still wrong, still missing one little scrap of evidence that overthrows this idea, but after thinking it over and reassessing my understanding of this series, I am very confident in this idea. There is still one thing I cannot easily explain away, and that is the fact that Homura in the Walpurgisnacht Rising trailer, the one I've been calling Gown Homura, does have a resemblance to the Ultimate Witch. I'm currently able to settle on the idea that she is just dressed that way because of Homura's own involvement with Walpurgisnacht and nothing more. But I know in my heart that there is probably a deeper meaning to it. But that one little detail, I think, does not make my other points invalid. This theory about Walpurgisnacht being the witch form of the Law of Cycles even explains another detail some have brought up. When combined, Walpurgisnacht and Kriemhild Gretchen form a complete shape, being that of a soul gem. This is a very good point, but some people went on to say that this must mean Homura is Walpurgisnacht, since she and Madoka are always linked. Even I, a firm believer in the Homura theory, did not take this point seriously, simply because you would need to actually account for Homer Lily instead of Walpurgisnacht to complete the hourglass, which is impossible to do. See, Homer Lily and Gretchen are of course the direct forms taken by Madoka and Homura when they are still humans, or, well, in their human form. I don't think this hourglass shape has anything at all to do with Homura. Instead, it tells me that Walpurgisnacht and Gretchen's link is simply a mirror of the relationship between Madoka Kaname and the Law of Cycles. One is known by her name and the other is known by her title, but both are fundamentally linked, but they are not the same. Just to be absolutely certain that I cover everything, there is one other small detail I need to point out. The symbol of the Law of Cycles as seen in Rebellion is being shown on screen now. And as you can see, its shape is circular, with protrusions on the underside representing the wings of the goddess. It is very hard to deny that this shape bears a striking resemblance to Walpurgisnacht's own body shape, circular with protrusions on its underside. I also want to say that, to me at least, it also looks somewhat like a grief seed, which is just another point in favor of my prior ideas of the goddess being a cosmic-scaled soldier. Walpurgisnacht Rising is going to be a hell of a movie. There's a lot to wrap up, and I'm sure there will still be plenty of mysteries left for us to uncover. But right now, let me just end by reaffirming my confidence in this theory. I have never been so confident in a theory about this series since the moment I said that mystery character is the human form of the Law of Cycles. My style for this video was drastically different, but I felt it was needed to convey just how big of a moment this was for me personally. Motivation has waned a lot for me when it comes to this channel and other Madoka Magica related videos, but this is one topic that I felt I needed to put to rest and get out there into the world. We shall soon see if this theory is true, and I, for one, am waiting with immense trepidation. Good things come to those who wait, and so I hope the wait for this will be worth it. I would like to thank my friend Evelyn for giving me the inspiration and motivation to actually get this theory out. It's been on the back burner for a long time, and yeah, our talks definitely helped push me into making it. So, thank you very much. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening. Farewell.